Do you know how loud your motorcycle is? Well, today I'm going to try to figure out using a decibel reader how loud this FMF is on my KTM 690 SMC R. So stick around to find out. So I've been able to do a lot of riding since moving to Arizona, and that's both on road and now I get the opportunity to on a track. And I've signed up for a couple track days coming in November here at Arizona Motorsports Park. And I'm excited because I've never ridden on a track in November or out here, so it's all going to be new to me. And something else that's new to me is a decibel limit. So at Arizona Motorsports Park, I'm limited to 96 decibel output at 50 feet at wide open throttle. The problem is, one, I don't know how many decibels this bike is in those parameters, and number two, what the hell is a decibel? So as defined by the internet, a decibel is classified as a logarithmic unit used to measure sound level. So it's kind of like a lumen, right? Where one lumen is like one lit candle. So if you have a headlight that produces 500 lumens or 1,000 lumens, that's like having 500 lit candles facing in one direction through a headlight. But how do you measure a decibel? So then what I'm going to be using to measure this today is actually an app, and this is called Decibel X. And if you can see this, it's basically reading the volume output of my voice, me talking, and plenty of other things that, well, I mean, make noise. But, I mean, to get an idea, you know, of what a decibel level should be around, there's plenty of charts and things, but let's measure it against a few things that we know around the house, like basically me talking and how loud that is. Or maybe even the TV on. What about a blender? So now that we can kind of understand what a decibel is, how we're going to measure it, we're going to perform 3 different tests before we actually do that 50-foot wide open throttle test. Now, currently, my FMF has 0 dB killer or anything in there. I mean, it is straight out the back. So I've been able to find my stock, or the one that came with the FMF, dB killer insert. So this, as you can kind of see, if it'll focus, as you can kind of see, is basically a metal tube that's going to sit inside the exhaust and try to eliminate airflow and sound and disperse that. Because what makes this thing so loud, especially behind me, is the fact that it's shooting in one direction. This sort of breaks that up to help dissipate that sound faster. So this is the one that came with the FMF, and then I actually bought another one, and this is their super quiet version. You can tell there's a lot more metal, a lot less screen, and definitely a different angle compared to the one that came with this exhaust. So you can see if it'll focus here. Stock one, or factory FMF one, and then the one that I just bought, which is the extra super dB killer version. The only problem is this one actually fits and this one doesn't. So might have to modify it a little bit. But anyway, we're going to test those 3 things. The bike as it sits right now with the FMF piece in there that came from the FMF factory, and then this new one that I decided to buy. And from there, the quietest one will win and move on to the next test. So let's get going. Now we're going to use the FMF dB killer that actually fits. So I'm going to just slide that sucker in there just like that, and then usually a ring goes around it. I'm going to try, since I'm not riding it, to just leave it like that. Let's see how this one sounds. Be careful with these things because they can be hot. Yeah. Come on. Aha. Oh, there it goes. All right, so that was actually better. You really couldn't tell much, but that was definitely better. So now I put this, you know, hot exhaust piece on a plastic table, you genius. We're gonna go for the extra one, and yeah, I'll show you what I mean when this is technically for like the 21s and up. Is it just kind of like barely fits, right? You know, actually that's not as bad as I thought, but either way. So we'll talk about fitment later, but let's give this one a go. I don't know. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know. This one was good. I think the revs were a little bit better, but idle was like the same thing. Let's look at the numbers. So then after playing the footage back and really looking at the numbers, I know super scientific, I got on average for nothing at all an idle of between 84 and 85 decibels. Now at peak revs at 5,000 RPM, I was between 108 to 110 decibels. Now that's with nothing in there, just straight FMF. Now if we look at just the one that came with the FMF from the factory, that idle was 83 to 84 decibels. So you dropped by what, probably about 1 or 2 decibels at most at idle. But then the huge difference was when actual peak revs at 5,000 RPM was between 98 to 99 decibels. So that was pretty impressive. All right, we're in the right direction. Now, even farther with the super quiet one, that ended up idle at 82 to 83 decibels. So you're probably just losing about a decibel or two, each one of them in idle. But then it got a little weird because at peak revs right around that 5,000 RPM mark, it was still between that like 96 to 99 decibel mark. So I don't know, like it seems like this would be the clear winner. But really not conclusive. So either way, they're close enough where I can start with this one, just because I think it's a little bit more restrictive and would be a little bit better of an opportunity here. But we'll start with this one, do some testing at 50 feet at wide open throttle, and then come back and see where we may need to go from there. So that means I gotta install this. How do you do that? Follow me. So installation should be fairly simple with step one of just inserting the piece into the exhaust and then making sure it's pushed all the way in. So then once this is in and seated, you're gonna take this ring here and you're gonna have to push it in place. So, you're going. Like so. Boop. So that is now in there and quote unquote secured. Kind of a pain, so take your time. All right, so now that this is installed, let's go outside in a big open area where we can get a 50-foot distance between the DB reader and the FMF, or I should say the bike itself. Let's do some pulls. All right, so now that we're out here in the blistering sun in a hot open parking lot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the camera and my phone for the DB measuring right here, and then I'm gonna measure 50 feet out into the street, just so that I can see exactly how far 50 feet is from what I'll be measuring. And then once that's all measured out, I'm gonna go ahead and take probably 2 or 3 full throttle pulls, second or third gear, just to measure that sound range. I'm also gonna try to be within the RPM range of probably 4,500 or higher, just because that makes the most sense to me and where I'll probably be coming out of a corner. So let's get set up. All right, so then this is about 50 feet from where I am now to where my backpack and the phone is. So I've measured in a sort of scientific, unscientific way. So that leaves me probably about maybe 1.5 feet from this curb edge over here. So I guess let's set the camera up. Let's set the dB measurer up and see what we can come up with. God damn, it's freaking hot out here. Alright, so unbeknownst to you guys, this is not wearing a GoPro on my chin. Had a bit of a malfunction, we'll say. It went pretty good for a while there, and then all of a sudden it just came flat out. So I think I got to figure out a new way, but I think I got enough to test that. Let's clean everything up. So then after reviewing the footage, I've concluded that I'm pretty much fucked. So I came in at about 97, most likely 98 decibels, at full throttle with the most constrictive, ultra quiet core FMF insert. And well, that's 2 over the 96 that I need to be at. And that even still wasn't like enough room. That was second gear, probably like 6,000 RPM. So if I ring that thing all the way out, like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. It doesn't make any sense. But what also doesn't make any sense is Arizona Motorsports Park is right next to the Air Force Air Base. So you have jets taking off. So, whatever. So I guess from here we've learned a few things. That this bike is horrendously loud without anything in it. And then any form of dB killer still won't make it quiet enough to be under 96 decibels at wide open throttle. So I guess, yeah, enjoy the bike. Again, the problem and why I never suggest doing the FMF on a 690 is I had to cut the factory header. So it's not like I can even put the factory, you know, can, muffler, exhaust, whatever you want to call it, back on the bike just for the track day and take it back off, considering I cut the header. So I don't know, we'll see. We'll try to get around it. Maybe I'll just go slow in those areas and see what's to come of next. But either way, I hope you enjoyed today's video, maybe learned something, and encourage you to go out and test the sound levels of your bike. I'll put all the part numbers as well as the app that I used in the description down below. And if you guys have any other experience, tips, tricks, maybe even ways that I can get around this at Arizona Motorsports Park, leave it in the comments down below. But until next time, remember, keep riding.